Human ignored the alien girl's mating signal, but his resistance marked him as a genetic threat ***. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Jackson Turner wasn't your average guy. A mechanical engineer living in New York City, he prided himself on his scientific mind and his skeptical view of the unknown. But the unknown was exactly what came knocking at his door one fateful evening. The world had already known about extraterrestrial life for a few years, but Jackson didn't buy into the media hype. He thought it was just a bunch of sensationalism. That was until she arrived, Elina. She wasn't like the aliens the media depicted, hostile, mysterious, or terrifying. No, Elina was different. She appeared calm, almost ethereal, with her strange lavender skin and hair that shimmered like stardust under the light. She spoke to Jackson telepathically, something his mind couldn't fully comprehend at first. "I've chosen you," her voice echoed in his thoughts. Jackson stared at her, confused but intrigued. The connection was undeniable, and yet, there was something strange about it, an odd tension that made him uncomfortable. Elina had been observing Earth for years, looking for a compatible mate, someone with the genetic potential to evolve in harmony with her species. Jackson, with his mix of genetic markers, was exactly what she needed. But Jackson didn't know this. He had no idea what was coming. She could feel it, the faint, involuntary signal of rejection that he sent out. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. In his mind, Jackson was just rejecting the idea of interacting with an alien, but to Elina, it was much more than that. It was an instinctive resistance, a signal that marked him not as a match, but as a threat. A genetic anomaly. For Elina, the implications were grave. His refusal to engage with her wasn't just about a personal choice. It threatened the delicate balance of their genetic compatibility. If he didn't cooperate, if his resistance grew, the consequences could be catastrophic, not just for him, but for everyone around him. But Jackson didn't know this yet. To him, Elina was just another strange being from another world, one who, despite her beauty, was still too alien to be trusted. He didn't want to be part of whatever she was offering. The idea of merging with an alien species. It was absurd. As the days passed, he found himself strangely drawn to her, though he fought the feeling. There was a magnetic pull, something that made his heart race, but it wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, something primal. But Jackson wasn't ready to let go of his skepticism. And yet, Elina's signal grew stronger with each passing day. What Jackson didn't realize was that his resistance had already begun to mark him. His DNA was beginning to react in ways he couldn't understand. Elina knew this wasn't just a matter of rejection, it was something much more dangerous, something that could potentially destroy both their species if left unchecked. Jackson's days had become a blur. Ever since Elina appeared in his life, things started to feel off. It wasn't just the strange encounters or the voice in his head, it was something deeper, something he couldn't quite explain. He tried to go back to his normal life, back to work, back to the routine he knew, but nothing felt the same. The world had shifted in ways he couldn't understand. At night, he would lie awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with questions he had no answers to. Why couldn't he shake the feeling of her presence? Elina was always there, like an echo in the back of his mind. It wasn't just the telepathic messages anymore, she was in his thoughts, his dreams, and somehow, she was even in his bones. He had noticed strange things happening to his body, things that shouldn't be possible. His skin would itch at random moments, his heart would race, and sometimes he would catch a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror, only to see a flicker of something foreign in his eyes. Jackson had been resistant to her from the start, trying to shut her out, but Elina's presence in his life was becoming undeniable. Her message, her signal, was not something that could be ignored. One evening, after a long day at work, Jackson found himself walking along the quiet streets of the city. He tried to clear his mind, but the thought of Elina, and what she represented, kept creeping in. Suddenly, he felt the familiar pull. He turned to see her standing in the shadows, her lavender skin glowing faintly under the streetlight. "You've been avoiding me," Elena's voice echoed in his mind, soft but firm. Jackson stopped in his tracks, his pulse quickening. He wasn't sure if it was fear or something else that made his heart race. "I haven't been avoiding you," he said aloud, though his voice sounded strained, as if he didn't fully believe his own words. I don't understand what you want from me." Elena stepped closer, her presence calming, almost soothing. "I want nothing from you," she said, her words floating in his mind. "I'm here because you are important, Jackson. Your resistance to the signal, it's not just a rejection. It's a threat. A genetic anomaly. And it's not just about you anymore." Jackson took a step back, his confusion growing. "What are you talking about? What do you mean, a genetic anomaly?" Elena sighed softly, a sound that seemed to echo both in the air and in his mind. "You're not just rejecting me, Jackson. Your resistance is altering your DNA. It's evolving in ways that could have consequences you don't yet understand. You're not just a human anymore. You're becoming something different." The weight of her words hung in the air between them, and Jackson felt his breath catch in his throat. He tried to process what she was saying, but it was like trying to understand a puzzle without all the pieces. "You're changing, Jackson. And if you don't accept the connection, it will destroy you," Elena said quietly. "But if you do accept it, if you allow yourself to accept what we are, you might be able to save us both." Jackson stood there, frozen, the truth of her words sinking in. He didn't know what to believe anymore. The world he once understood was no longer the same. He had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain, his life had irrevocably changed, and there was no going back. Jackson stood frozen, the weight of Elena's words pressing on his chest like a heavy stone. He had always believed that the world he knew was safe, predictable, controlled. But now, everything was changing. He wasn't sure what to think anymore. He wasn't sure who he was anymore. "You're saying that I'm evolving?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Elena nodded, her lavender skin glowing even brighter under the dim light of the street lamp. "Your resistance to the connection is altering your genetics in ways that are unpredictable. It's not just about rejecting me, Jackson. It's about rejecting your own potential, your evolution. And that creates an imbalance." Jackson felt a chill crawl down his spine. "An imbalance?" "Yes," Elena replied, her voice soft but urgent. "A genetic imbalance that could tear apart both our species. Your resistance to the signal, your refusal to accept the connection, is not just harming you. It's affecting me, too. It's affecting everything." Jackson's mind raced. He tried to make sense of what she was saying, but it was like trying to understand a dream, elusive, intangible. "But I don't want to change," he said, shaking his head. "I don't want any part of this." Elena's eyes softened, and for the first time, Jackson saw a hint of sadness in them. "I understand. I didn't ask for this either. But sometimes, Jackson, we don't get to choose our fate. And what if I choose to ignore it? What if I choose to go on with my life?" Jackson asked, his voice tinged with defiance. Elena's expression grew more serious. "Then you'll destroy everything. Not just you. Not just me. But everything." Jackson recoiled at her words, the implications of her statement settling in his mind like a dark cloud. "I can't believe this. I'm just a normal guy. I'm not some experiment." "You're not an experiment," Elena said gently. "You're the key. The connection between us is not random. You were chosen for a reason. Your genes, your resistance, they're part of something much bigger than either of us." Jackson felt his head spinning. "This doesn't make sense. How can I be the key?" Elena stepped closer to him, her presence calming, almost soothing. "Because, Jackson, your DNA is special. It has the potential to bridge the gap between our species, to bring about a new era. But only if you accept the connection. If you don't, the imbalance will grow. The change in you will become uncontrollable, and the consequences will be devastating." Jackson wanted to protest, to tell her that he wasn't ready for any of this. But the truth was, he wasn't sure what he was ready for anymore. Elena's words kept echoing in his mind, swirling around him like a whirlwind. He had to make a choice, but how could he choose when he didn't even understand the full picture? How do I even begin to accept this, he asked, his voice quiet, almost defeated. Elina smiled softly, her eyes filled with empathy. We start by understanding each other. By trusting each other. And by accepting that change, while frightening, is sometimes necessary. I can help you, Jackson. I can show you what you need to do. Jackson stared at her, the weight of his decision pressing heavily on his shoulders. He didn't know if he was ready for this, but he knew one thing: his life, and the fate of both their worlds, depended on what he decided next. Jackson had never felt more conflicted in his life. Every part of him wanted to walk away, to pretend that none of this was happening. But deep down, he knew that wouldn't work. It couldn't work. Elina was right. He was already changing, and his resistance was doing more harm than good. As much as he wanted to deny it, the effects were starting to show. His heart was racing again, and there was an odd sensation in his bones, something shifting, almost like his very DNA was vibrating, reordering itself. He couldn't explain it, and he didn't want to. But he couldn't ignore it any longer. The question now wasn't whether he would change, it was whether he could control the change or let it spiral out of his hands. What do I need to do? Jackson finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He wasn't sure what made him say it. Maybe it was the desperation in Elina's voice, or the fear that was settling deep inside him. Maybe it was the understanding that his world, his reality, had already shifted beyond recognition. First, Elina began, her voice gentle yet firm, you need to trust me. Trust that I'm not here to harm you. I'm here because we are linked in a way that neither of us fully understands yet. But if we work together, we can make it work. Jackson took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The weight of her words was crushing, but there was something about her calm presence that kept him from turning away. Okay, he said, though it felt like a reluctant surrender. What's next? We start with understanding, Elina replied. You need to accept that your resistance has consequences. Your body is trying to fight against something that's already happening. The more you fight it, the more dangerous it becomes. We need to find a way to harmonize with the change, to make it something that works with you, not against you. Jackson frowned. Harmonize. How do I do that? Elina smiled softly, her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite read, compassion, or maybe pity. You need to learn to embrace it, Jackson. To accept the possibility of becoming something different. It's not just about me. It's about the future of both our species. If we succeed, we can create something new, something better. But if we fail, her words trailed off, and for a moment, the air between them was thick with unspoken fear. What if I can't? Jackson asked, the vulnerability in his voice catching him off guard. He wasn't used to feeling weak, to feeling helpless. But here, in front of Elina, he felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure of what would happen if he jumped. Then it will be too late, Elina said softly. The imbalance will grow, and we will both be lost in it. But if you trust me, if you let go of the fear, we can make it work. Jackson didn't know what to say. Everything about this situation felt unnatural. But deep down, he knew that he didn't have a choice. He had to try, for the sake of his future, and for the sake of Elina and her people. He wasn't sure what the outcome would be, or even if he was ready for what was to come. But he did know one thing, nothing would ever be the same again. He had stepped into a new reality, and he had to face whatever came next. All right, he said, his voice more steady now, though still tinged with uncertainty. I'll do it. I'll trust you. Elina's expression softened, and she reached out, placing a hand on his. It was warm, almost comforting. Thank you, Jackson, she said. This is just the beginning. Jackson didn't know what that meant, but for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of something far beyond his comprehension. Every step he took into this unknown territory felt like a risk, but one that he knew he had to take. Elina had given him the choice, to trust, to accept, and to evolve, or to reject it all and let the imbalance spiral out of control. As they continued their conversations over the following days, Jackson found himself more willing to listen, even if he didn't fully understand everything she said. He still couldn't grasp the science behind it, but the feeling in his body, the strange sensations that came and went, were becoming impossible to ignore. His DNA was changing, as Elina had warned. It was subtle at first, little things like feeling more energetic or noticing his senses sharpening, but the changes were undeniable. Jackson had started waking up earlier than usual, with a clarity he hadn't felt before. His mind felt sharp, more focused. But with the clarity came unease. His dreams were filled with strange images, alien landscapes, and sounds he couldn't place. He didn't know if it was his mind trying to make sense of what was happening to him, or if it was something else altogether. He couldn't remember the last time he felt truly in control. "Are you okay?" Elina asked one evening as they sat together, looking out over the city skyline. Her voice was soft, but it held a note of concern. Jackson turned to her, still uncertain of where he stood with everything. "I don't know," he replied honestly. "It's all just so much. I feel different, but I can't tell if it's for the better or worse. I'm not sure if I'm ready for whatever this is." Elina looked at him with understanding, her lavender eyes warm. "You're not alone in this, Jackson. We're in this together. What you're experiencing, it's a part of you now. It's a new beginning. But I won't force you to go further if you're not ready." He could see the sincerity in her eyes, and it made him pause. Her offer to help, to guide him through the unknown, was more than just a promise. It felt like the first step toward something larger, something greater than he could have imagined. "I want to understand," Jackson said after a long moment. "I don't know if I can fully accept it yet, but I want to know what's happening to me. I want to be able to make an informed choice." Elina smiled softly. "That's all I ask. We'll take it one step at a time. Trust is built, not given freely. I won't rush you, Jackson. But I promise you, everything that's happening, it's leading to something important." Jackson nodded, the weight of her words settling over him. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he wasn't facing it alone. The path ahead was unclear, but he could see a glimmer of light at the end of it, a light that might lead him to a future he could never have imagined, a future that could bridge the gap between his world and hers. He took a deep breath, feeling the strange sensation in his chest again, the pulse of something new, something unknown. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure: his life was no longer just his own. It was connected to something much bigger, and with Elina by his side, he would have to find a way to embrace whatever came next. Jackson spent the next few days in a haze, his thoughts tangled in a web of uncertainty and curiosity. His connection with Elina was growing stronger with each passing hour, but so were the changes within him. Every moment felt like a delicate balancing act between resisting the unknown and succumbing to it. He could feel it now, more than ever, his body shifting, adjusting in ways that defied explanation. But there was no denying it, the changes were real. As much as he tried to fight it, every cell in his body seemed to be accepting the transformation. It was like his body was moving toward something far beyond human understanding, and yet it also felt familiar, like a hidden part of him was being unlocked. Elina's presence was constant. Every time he thought he could escape the thoughts of her, her voice would find him, either in his mind or in the corner of his awareness. "How do you feel?" she asked one afternoon as they walked through a quiet park, the cool autumn breeze brushing against them. Jackson paused, his breath coming a little quicker than usual. "Different," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know if it's good or bad yet. But it's unsettling. I can't explain it, but it's like I'm not completely myself anymore." Elina nodded, her expression a mixture of understanding and concern. "That's part of the process, Jackson. Change isn't easy. But it's necessary. You're adapting, evolving in a way that will make us both stronger." Jackson turned to look at her, her face serene, almost otherworldly in the way she held herself. Despite everything, despite the fear gnawing at him, there was something calming about being around her. "But what if I can't adapt? What if this all goes wrong?" he asked. Elina stopped walking, her gaze intense. "You have to believe that it won't. The process is not without its risks, but you've made the choice to trust. And trust is the foundation of what we're building together." Jackson was quiet for a moment, the weight of her words pressing down on him. Could he really trust this alien? This being who, despite all her kindness, was still so different from everything he knew. The world he once knew felt distant now, as if it was fading away with each passing day. He didn't know how to navigate this new reality, but he also didn't want to turn his back on it. The fear of the unknown was still there, lurking, but something deeper inside him, the part of him that had chosen to trust Elena, began to drown out the doubt. "I want to believe you," Jackson said finally, his voice soft but determined. "I don't understand all of this, but I'm willing to try. I don't know if I can become what you want me to be, but I'll give it a shot." Elena's expression softened, a gentle smile curving her lips. "That's all I ask, Jackson. We take it one step at a time, together. No rush, no pressure. You'll see, in time, that this connection, this evolution, it will be worth it. You'll be part of something greater, something beyond anything you've ever imagined." Jackson nodded, though doubt still lingered in the back of his mind. He didn't know what was going to happen next, or if he could handle the changes that were coming. But for the first time in days, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something extraordinary. Something that could bridge the gap between their two worlds and change everything he thought he knew about himself. He wasn't sure where this path would lead, but with Elena by his side, he was willing to find out. Jackson spent the next few weeks adjusting to his new reality. Each day felt like a slow, deliberate progression, his body continuing to adapt, his mind struggling to keep up. The changes were more noticeable now, more pronounced. He could feel the subtle hum of energy within him, as if his cells were vibrating at a different frequency. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. He would catch glimpses of his reflection, and for a brief moment, he didn't recognize the person staring back at him. His eyes, once ordinary, now seemed sharper, more focused, as if they could see beyond the surface. The world felt different, crisper, clearer. Colors were brighter, sounds more distinct. It was as if he had been living in a fog, and now, everything had come into sharp relief. Elena, ever patient and understanding, was there by his side every step of the way. She helped him navigate these changes, explaining what was happening to him, though some parts of the transformation still remained a mystery to both of them. "Your senses are becoming more attuned to the world around you," Elena explained one evening as they sat together, watching the city below. "This is part of the evolution. As your body adapts, it will begin to pick up on things you couldn't perceive before. You'll begin to understand the subtle currents that flow through all living things." Jackson nodded, trying to process what she was saying. He didn't fully understand it, but he could feel it. It was real. He was becoming something different, and there was no turning back. "It's strange," Jackson said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I feel connected, in a way, to everything. But I'm also scared. What if I lose myself in this? What if I don't like who I become?" Elena turned to him, her lavender eyes filled with compassion. "You won't lose yourself, Jackson. You're not becoming someone else. You're becoming more of who you already are. These changes, they're part of your evolution, yes. But they don't erase who you are at your core. You'll still be Jackson. Just expanded. More aware, more connected. This is not about losing yourself. It's about growing." Jackson exhaled slowly, his mind racing. A part of him wanted to pull away, to resist the changes that were happening so rapidly. But another part of him felt a pull, a need to embrace this new path, to see where it would lead. He had trusted Elena so far, and despite the fear, he didn't want to back down now. "I don't know if I can do this alone," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't want to lose this opportunity." Elena reached out, placing a hand on his. Her touch was warm, comforting, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this. "You're not alone, Jackson," she said softly. "I'm here. We're in this together. And whatever happens, we'll face it side by side." The words lingered in the air between them, a promise that carried weight, that carried hope. Jackson felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of fear and excitement. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of possibility. He didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. With Elena by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next, no matter how strange or terrifying it might be. He had already taken the first step into the unknown. And he wasn't going to turn back. Days passed in a blur for Jackson. The changes continued, each one more intense than the last. At first, they had been subtle, like a gentle wave pushing against the shore, but now, they were crashing over him, pulling him deeper into something he couldn't quite grasp. His senses were heightened, sharper than ever. He could hear the rustle of leaves from across the street, the faint hum of electricity running through power lines, the heartbeat of people walking by. It was overwhelming, but it was also intoxicating. He had never felt so alive, so connected to everything around him. The strange, foreign energy that coursed through him felt like a power he could barely contain, and yet it felt natural, as if it was a part of him all along. But with the new sensations came new questions. What was he becoming? Was he still human, or was he something else now? Elina had been there for him through every moment, every doubt, every surge of fear. She had explained it all to him, the evolution, the connection, the changes, but the more he learned, the less certain he became about what it all meant for him. I feel like I'm losing myself, Jackson admitted to Elina one evening, his voice laced with frustration. I can't even recognize my own thoughts sometimes. It's like I'm being pulled in so many directions at once. I don't know what's real anymore. Elina looked at him with gentle eyes, understanding in her gaze. It's normal to feel that way, Jackson. The process you're going through, it's not easy. It's not something any of us can truly prepare for. But I promise you, you're not losing yourself. You're discovering parts of you that have always been there, hidden deep inside. It's just, now they're waking up. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, trying to steady his racing thoughts. But how do I control it? How do I stop feeling like I'm just changing into something else? Elina took a step closer, her presence grounding him. You control it by accepting it, by allowing yourself to flow with the changes instead of fighting them. The more you resist, the harder it will be. This isn't about forcing yourself to stay the same, it's about growing into something greater. You have to trust that this is the path you're meant to walk. Jackson wasn't sure if he could fully accept that yet, but he wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that he could still be himself, even as everything around him shifted. What happens next? He asked, his voice quiet, but filled with a mixture of fear and hope. Elina smiled softly, her lavender eyes filled with warmth. Next, we take the next step together. The more you embrace the change, the stronger we'll become. You're not alone in this, Jackson. And I promise, when the time is right, you'll see that this journey, this evolution, is more than just about you or me. It's about both of our worlds, coming together to create something new, something that will change everything. Jackson felt a flicker of hope deep inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He didn't know what the future held, but with Elina by his side, he was beginning to believe that whatever came next, he would be ready for it. Together, they could face whatever challenges the future had in store. He just had to trust in the process, trust in the evolution, and trust in himself. The unknown didn't seem so terrifying anymore, not with Elina's reassurance and the promise of something greater on the horizon. He wasn't sure what he would become, but he was starting to understand that perhaps it didn't matter. He was becoming part of something bigger than himself. And that, in itself, was a kind of hope he couldn't ignore. Jackson woke up that morning with a strange feeling in the pit of his stomach. For weeks now, the changes had been progressing, subtle at first but more pronounced now. His senses were sharper, his thoughts clearer, and yet, there was an underlying tension, a sense that something was building, something he wasn't quite prepared for. As the day went on, the feeling intensified. He couldn't ignore the way his body reacted to the world around him. He could hear distant conversations, the rustling of papers in the next room, the rhythm of Elina's breathing from across the apartment. It was as if the world was in high definition, every detail more vivid than he could ever remember. Yet, amid all the clarity, there was a sense of unease. Elina had been patient with him, guiding him through this journey of transformation, but today, something was different. She was quieter than usual, her eyes filled with a kind of quiet intensity. He knew that something was coming, something she wasn't saying. Elina, Jackson asked as they sat in the quiet of the living room, what's happening to me? I can feel it. I can feel that something is about to change again. Is this it? Is this the next step? Elina looked at him, her lavender eyes steady and calm. This is the beginning of the final stage, Jackson. The moment you've been preparing for. The evolution is almost complete. But now, it's not just about adapting. It's about merging your human side and the part of you that's been awakening. The two must become one. Jackson felt his heart rate increase. Merging. What does that mean? I thought we were just adjusting, learning how to control these changes. What's going to happen to me? It means that the change you've been resisting, the one that has been causing all this confusion and fear, is about to settle. You'll finally integrate the parts of you that are alien to your nature, the parts that have been dormant for so long. But in doing so, you will no longer be the same. You'll be more. Jackson swallowed hard. He had come so far, had trusted Elina every step of the way, but now, facing the final step, a flood of doubts rushed in. But, will I still be me? Elina smiled, her voice soft and reassuring. Yes, you will still be you. But you will also be something more. You will be the bridge between our two worlds. The union of human and alien, of your past and your future. Jackson stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He was about to cross a line he couldn't come back from. He wasn't just changing his body or his mind, he was becoming something new, something that could reshape everything he knew about himself. I'm ready, he said, more to himself than to Elina. It was a quiet declaration, but it was enough to break the silence between them. Elina nodded, her face full of pride. I believe you are. This is the moment, Jackson. The moment when you embrace who you truly are meant to be. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, as if the very space was aware of the change that was about to take place. Jackson could feel it, too, a powerful force building within him, ready to break free. It was time. Time to let go of the last remnants of fear, to step into this new version of himself. And as he did, he realized that he wasn't just accepting change, he was embracing it, embracing everything that came with it. He didn't know what the future held, but with Elina by his side, he was ready to face whatever was next. Together, they would create something new, something that would change the world as they knew it.